Saul and Battery, hosted by Mel and Kelly.
And Mike.
Forget what you know. Forget what you know. Saul and Battery.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Saul and Battery, a recap of Better Call Saul. And tonight, we're going to be covering Season 3, Episode 2, called Witness. I'm Kelly Toole, at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
And I'm Mike, at Official Pagan on just about everything.
So pulled all the stops out for the Saul diorama, and I've included a cassette tape in the background, which we will talk more about later. But
very, very exciting.
Yes, we spare no expense. So before we kind of get in, Mike gets to do the 1 minute recap this week. Just top line reactions, Mike, to the show.
I really enjoyed this episode. I have a lot to say about it that I guess we'll get into when we do our breakdown of it. Okay. And particularly, I have a little surprise for you. But before we get to that, what's your overall reaction?
So I'm enjoying it. We'll get into it in the recap. We saw some friends that we from Breaking Bad this episode, which was very, very cool. And I anticipated, we talked last week about that likely Chuck's plan involved in trapping Jimmy, and sure enough, we'll see a little more about that. It seems to be moving along. I'm super interested to see how next week goes.
Absolutely.
All right, my friend. We'll see how we do here.
All right, so if I'm ready to do the 1 minute recap. Now, last week, and correct me if I'm wrong in my remembering of this, but you requested an extra 10 seconds for your 1 minute recap, correct?
I did. And I did, and you granted it because the magnanimous Mike that you are, and I still failed. So thanks for bringing that up. But yes.
So, I've decided, I feel like I need to up the stakes a little bit here. I'm going to request that we cut 10 seconds from mine. I'm saying I can do this in 50 seconds.
Okay. Here, hang on a sec. Just make sure that you're good. You still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, we had a little break up there for a second, but I think we're okay now. So okay. 50 seconds. So
50
and
seconds.
Was a long episode. This was a long episode again. So
yes, it was. So I'm showing that not only could you do a longer episode in 1 minute, I'm saying I could do it in 50 seconds.
Yeah. This is, and I'm fairly certain you will. So, yeah. Okay. You got 50 seconds. Are you ready?
I'm ready. So the timer starts when I start, right?
Yeah. If the phone doesn't die on me there. Hang on a sec. Gotta. All this stalling for the time in advance as you prep through our phone went to sleep. So here we go. We get it back up here again. It's fairly visible, and I will start the timer when you start talking.
All right, here we go. Chuck has a sleepover. Mike tracks the trackers. Kim isn't sold on their new assistant. Jimmy grabs some chicken and meets Gus. Ernie tells Jimmy's new lawyer about the tape. Hamlin plays Ferris Bueller, and Jimmy falls into Chuck's trap.
Bastard. Well, that's a lesson I'm learning. That's excellent. Well done. Wow. So we'll have to check that. That's around a 15-second recap, and captured all the salient points. Oh, you're better at this than I am. So that was good. That was really good. Wow. Now I'm going to be practicing for the next one. So, I don't know if I'm going to beat your 15 seconds. I thought you were just going to go, Chuck's a dick. And that was going to be the
I should have, but I feel like that could be used as a recap for a number of episodes that'll be on the way.
Fair enough. And that was good, though. Wow, I was super impressed. Okay. We'll be having a lot shorter shows now because somebody's got it going down. Let's just kind of step through a little bit more. We've got at the very beginning, as you covered, so I'll going to recap. Chuck's getting ready to go. Anything in the open you wanted to talk about?
Nothing specific. So from the opening, I kind of understood what was going to happen in the end, even though they didn't explain what the plan was. I personally kind of felt like, okay, this guy is here. I didn't know, specifically if he was a private investigator or whatever, but it was obvious that he was expecting Jimmy to either break in or have someone break in and try and take the tape.
Yeah. And quite the shady character. Well, not shady, but the Vegas deck point was kind of a little interesting detail, and I wonder. And of course, Chuck has never been to Las Vegas. Of course, he hasn't. He was biding time by playing some solitaire or something with the Vegas deck with a hole drill through the cards, which is how they get rid of old casino cards.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember playing with those decks, with the drilled decks, when I was a kid.
Yep, I've seen them also with it's with the corners cut off, and the same thing they kind of do with cutout albums and all that. So, All right, Act 1. We get somebody doing a word search, and you always with this show got to keep your eyes peeled wide open. So another thing, so I'm like, is the deck mean anything down the road? And in this one, I noticed that the word search that this guy was doing was a pretty depressing one because it included Columbia and trajectory and I believe explosion. So not the happiest word search I've ever seen.
See, I did not scour the word search, but I feel like the deck has to mean something because I feel like a lot of people know that these decommissioned decks, for lack of a better term, like you said, the corners cut off or drilled or whatever. So to kind of explain that entire thing to a character that, while Chuck may, it's understandable that he may not have ventured out to Vegas because of his particular issues. I think he's an intelligent enough man that he would have been aware of that. So I feel like explaining that whole thing is going to come into play at some point.
It just seems like it would, but we'll see.
It seems like a lot of time spent on something for it to not come back.
Yeah, and because this is not a group that wastes time or wastes energy on kind of dead end things, unless they're just trying to mess with us some too.
which is a good point. Maybe that is a possibility. But I think overall, and I'm sure you agree with this, the writing on this show is so strong. There really isn't any fat in this writing. No,
I don't believe there is either. So we do have Mike kind of doing a little. It's apparently the gas cap gang, and they're getting the gas cap switched down and explain what they did. And Mike's busily tracking along, and there's
tracking the tracker back to the trackers.
Tracking the tracker back to the trackers, as somebody recapped for us, and that's great, by the way. And so they're picking up packages, and then they stop by a place. And at what point did you know the location that they were stopping at?
It was right before the reveal. Like, that's kind of where I hoped it was going. And I had read some stuff about them introducing Gus in the first couple of episodes. So, and getting into that whole thing. So that's kind of where I was hoping it was going, but I didn't know for sure until right before the full reveal. You?
So, I mean, I had assumed it was Polos, because you saw just enough of the color scheme, which is basically the wall and a window, and that red. And I said, I bet you that's Polos, but I wasn't completely confident in my call on that until they pulled all the way back, and we saw the reveal. But this is not the Breaking Bad Polos. This is a Polos in a different, slightly rougher section of town. Polos.
I got the impression that this was like, an early location, not the established franchise.
So, getting text messages from our viewers, and a Tim from Bloomington, Illinois, texted in that Chuck is truly a dick. We're in agreement on that, Tim. And but I guess he's seen episode 1, not episode 2, but no big spoiler that Chuck's a dick. So
right.
And he's also arguing that Mike is the greatest TV character of all time.
I think a solid argument can be made for that.
I would agree. And I love, we'll talk about it here in a little bit as Jimmy and Mike get to visit a little bit, but we learn we're at Polos. Now, our eagle-eyed viewers for episode 2, I'd like a little bit of help on this, because while, as Mike pointed out, this crew is really, they hit on all cylinders. I'm just not 100% sure what happened here, but at the very end, when the green truck was backing out, there were 2 things I noticed that may have been goofs, but I've got to go back and rewatch and see if I was delusional or not. One is, it's a Chevy truck, and when it's backing up, the white Chevrolet across the back, the Chevrolet's reversed. And so I think they've done this from time to time where they'll flip the shot so it kind of comes out the other way. I think they may have reversed that, and the lettering's actually backwards. Hope somebody can watch and confirm whether I was right on that. And then the other interesting thing is when it was right after that, when it turned around and came forward, I could have swore I saw a Ford medallion on the front of that truck. So those would be 2 things. If you'd watch the episode, or you can go back and go through, check me, see if I was eagle-eyed and caught something, or whether it's time for me to visit the optometrist again.
I did not catch that at all, but it is funny, like when I'm watching these episodes now, and I'm sure that this is for a lot of fans, I am on the lookout for like weird little things everywhere, little Easter eggs everywhere.
Yeah, because they're usually there. It's very cool. So then we go into the next section where we see an old friend come in, Francesca, Saul Goodman's secretary from Breaking Bad, who apparently used to work at the DMV.
Yes, or what is it? It's not the DMV there. What did they say it was?
MVD, Motor Vehicle Department.
Yeah.
Except Jimmy will have none of that. And we have expressed our admiration for Ray Seahorn in our past shows, and how awesome we think the character of Kim is, her portrayal. But she's practically showing off now how good she is, because this whole process of her conveying to us as they go through the interview process that she feels it's being rushed, that she doesn't really kind of like how it's going, and she's not necessarily satisfied. She doesn't say a word, but that's exactly what she's thinking.
Right. Not even necessarily that she dislikes her, but she's not sold the way that Jimmy just instantly is, and ready to fill the position just to fill it.
Yep. Yeah. Because Kim, as we learn, is pretty obsessive, and really, really wants to make sure she gets the right person. But Jimmy gives her the job, gives her the primary coaching advice of be folksy. And so some calls are coming in. He's kind of coaching her through her calls, and she does just great. Brings up Cracker Barrel on the first call. Second caller comes in, not as enthusiastic to talk about Cracker Barrel.
And that, of course, would be
our good friend Mike.
One of the contenders for the best TV character.
Yeah. The Tim from Bloomington is arguing to say, solid argument my ass for Mike. It is a fact that he is. So he's really not entertaining.
No, there's no other options.
Termination's been made in Bloomington by Tim, but
Tim doesn't happen to be the same guy who left the comments on our killer review, is he?
I do not believe so, because all the texts that I have received. First of all, I hope that the guy who's dropping comments on our review comments on our killer review, I really hope that guy does not have my cell phone number. Yeah. So for you Better Call Saul fans, if you happen to ever listen to Squat Cobbler, the podcast that Mike and I do, go back and
which happens to borrow its name from Better Call Saul. So this isn't completely off topic.
Yeah, that's right. It's almost a spinoff, sort of, kind of. We've been reviewing Alice Cooper albums, and we did the fantastic album Killer, which has gotten a fairly decent number of views of all of our reviews of Alice albums. It's the leader in terms of views. But we recently have received some comments from an individual that you just best read them. and then after you read them, if you want to drop me a line and explain to me what the point being made is, I'd appreciate it. Or
feel free to leave your own comments.
That'd be great. And also feel free to like this video for us, because we are 1-1 on our first episode coming back. We got 1 like and we got 1 dislike, and so I always like to be up on the like side. So if you are listening, get a chance to give us a thumbs up. If you feel that, of course, we'd really appreciate it.
And if you feel like doing the thumbs down thing, don't just turn it off.
That's right. Go find another video to do that for.
Yeah, watch another one of our videos first.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the podcast Dylan Knows, do a search in Google on Dylan Knows and go give him a thumbs down somewhere. No, don't do that. Dylan's an awesome guy.
Dylan's a good friend.
A very good friend. So first person to today happens to be my birthday, and Dylan was the first person to send me birthday wishes this morning. So thanks Dylan, for that. Very cool of you.
Very, very nice. And I wasn't going to bring up your birthday on this because I wasn't sure if you were going to make it all the way through the show, because I assume the hookers and cocaine have taken their toll at this point.
There are ground rules that are set, in terms of podcast etiquette. Thorough research is done before anyone's employed. So it's Mike, and obviously Mike's not going to go for Cracker Barrel chit chat.
Right.
I don't know structurally how we want to do it. Do we want to do our favorite quote kind of in flow? Because mine comes out of this section. Or do you want to wait till the end?
Mine just happened too, so I could kind of drop it in now as well if you want.
Why don't you drop yours first, and then I'll do mine.
Mine is when Jimmy tells her to try and bring up Cracker Barrel.
It's folksy. That's good.
That made me laugh so hard because while there are Cracker Barrels sort of in proximity where I live, like none local, but in the suburb areas of where I live, so within like say a 20-minute drive from here, you could hit a Cracker Barrel. I had never really frequented or visited these places, so I didn't know really what Cracker Barrel was until, say, a few years ago. And I have met those people who are like, do you go to Cracker Barrel? Like, that's a genuine talking point for certain people, and it sort of brought that up.
So hit a Cracker Barrel is not code for anything?
No.
It should be.
It should be. Should be.
Yeah, we should hit
Although
Barrel.
I will honestly say that the last time I was in a Cracker Barrel, I did buy something from the store there. So I'll make that admission here just for our Saul fans.
There you go.
It was like a whiskey and sawdust scented candle.
Come again?
It was a whiskey and sawdust scented candle.
I have never heard of such a thing.
Neither had I. So I felt that I had to make this purchase. And you know what? Honestly, it smelled pretty good when it burned.
It seems like the smell of sawdust burning is prequel to Get Out of the House, It's on Fire. But
honestly, it just smelled like a fireplace that you maybe threw your drink into.
That'd been a better name for the candle. So this section 2 is my quote, and it actually came down to two. One was, as Jimmy's making the case going, she worked at the DMV, which is like the fifth circle of hell. I thought that was pretty good. But I liked after Kim continues to kind of have. No, this was to Mike. He said, "Hey, thanks for crushing her spirit on her first day." So I thought that's the quote I'm going with.
That was really good. That got an actual out loud laugh out of me.
And I'm sure Mike could care less, but he wants to have a breakfast meeting. So,
which I fully support. I'm a big fan of breakfast. I can skip lunch and dinner, but I am a breakfast guy.
Yeah. And it's not like, oh, don't meet with Mike in the morning because he's going to be grumpy and grouchy. It's like, it doesn't really matter. When you meet with Mike, he's going to be grumpy and grouchy. So,
right.
And I'd have some coffee. So we come back, and we're at the Polos, and the Esteem is back in action in all of its yellow and red glory. And Mike is asking Jimmy to stake out the Polos for these package guys to kind of see what's going on. What is your, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being Tom Cruise stealthy in Mission Impossible 3, and 0 being a bull in a china shop, how would you depict Jimmy's skills as a stakeout artist?
He was pretty good until right around the time that Gus passed him, sweeping up. At that point, he had really just zeroed in on staring directly at the guy. But up until that point, like, you know, he made an order, sat down, he made sure he was close enough to the counter to hear the guy's order, stuff like that. So he was doing pretty good. Like, obviously he's not a professional at doing this, but he was getting all the pertinent information. But then once he was seated, around the time we saw, you know, Gus as a blur in the background over his shoulder working his way towards him, he had just taken to directly staring at him, which is not as covert as he maybe thought it was.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I mean, I'm going to give him a 1 for the aggregate score, because I agree, a strong start. He was getting a little fixated on the guy, and it was obviously kind of scanning. But when he went up to refresh his coffee or whatever he was doing, it was the saddest display of stealth I've ever seen, where he's taking full sugar packets and just tapping them on the cup lid to, I guess, simulate that he's adding sugar. It was sad.
See, I felt like he started strong though. Like he knew to order something so that he wouldn't draw attention to himself, and he would just blend in. He listened to that guy's order just in case any of that was sort of, you know, code or anything like that, which is something like, that's a little detail that I think if I was put into that situation, I might not think to listen to that person's order. So like up until that point, I felt like he was doing okay. And then he just turned into staring blankly at his target.
Staring blankly, terrible fake sugar work, followed by basically, apparently Jimmy is quite a fan of trash. And so we're the second time we've seen Jimmy very close to trash. And so he was trying to guess, because this guy didn't appear to do anything, drop anything off. He did throw something away, and so Jimmy was investigating it. And I loved it when he said, "I've been in worse," you know, because Gus kind of stops by, "Can I help you?" And he's like, Jimmy was saying, "No, I've been in worse places." And Jimmy's previous trash experience was worse. Because I'm going to cross my finger that there was no soiled adult diaper in the Polos Hermanos trash can. I can't say that for sure.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it is fast food, so
yeah, it's possible.
I feel like anything is possible when you get into that.
No doubt. Mike and Jimmy spend a little quality time after, and he did. I will give you. You're right. Maybe I need to up him to 2, because he did remember everything. He had all the details. His execution was a little iffy, but he did the job really well. He had all the facts, and tries to bond with Mike, and Mike's not really having it.
No. Now, so just to backstep really quickly. So what did you think of the actual, you know, exchange that happened in there?
Between Jimmy and Mike?
No, between Gus and the guy.
I wanted to ask you that. That's a great question. I think whatever was supposed to happen was aborted. That there's some sort of plan that guy comes in with that stuff. And if Gus comes out to greet him or something happens, an exchange takes place. But if Gus doesn't come over to his place, then he doesn't execute on it. And because Jimmy was maybe not being as stealthy as he could be, and Gus being as cautious as he is, he kind of waved this one off. And so that I think whatever typically happened as an exchange did not happen that visit because Gus smelled a rat. His spider sense tingled, if you will.
I think I think that's a really strong possibility that it was aborted because Gus knows that there's something going on. I think another possibility is that the exchange did happen and that it was something that Gus swept into the little sweeper that he had, little dustbin.
That's good too. And that would be
because he did pass by the table with it. So it could have been, and again, this is pre-Breaking Bad, so this is earlier in Gus's operation. So it's not necessarily like, a truck full of money or drugs or anything like that. It could be a much smaller exchange. So maybe it was something where a pouch on the side of the bag was left open so the stuff could fall out, and he just sweeps it quickly into his little dustbin and keeps going.
Fair enough. Could be. I like that theory too. We'll have to see. Hopefully soon. We come back after commercial there, and we get our second Breaking Bad returnee. I think it was Victor. I'm trying to remember the character's name from Breaking Bad, but he ends up being Mike's guy in Breaking Bad, his main lieutenant until Gus makes him no longer his guy. But it was nice. It was nice to see him back there again. So we just got a shot of him and he's the green truck driver.
Right.
So then we get back to Kim and Saul's work environment, and Ernesto has kind of filled Kim in, kind of in the freaked out Ernesto way, because he's not really sure what to do. And Kim rushes in and grabs Jimmy to kind of give him the update. And she teaches Jimmy a little trick that he uses in Better Call Saul. Did you pick up on that?
The give me money.
Yep.
Make me your lawyer thing. Yes. And yep. I can say with, not sure it should be pride or not, I was in court once and needed a lawyer and handed somebody some cash to make them my lawyer. So I was in a similar situation once.
And both Jimmy and Jesse Pinkman need to learn the lesson. You should always have a couple singles with you. Otherwise, you're going to get screwed out of a 5 or a 20 or something like that. Kim explains that Chuck's got a tape, and Jimmy is very, very sad.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about the scene, too, and the way that it plays out. Like, it's like he's angry, but he's more sad than anything else.
Yeah, because he really does want Chuck to like him. You can
Yeah,
tell
like
that.
he wants something from Chuck that will just never be there. Kim sees it, the audience sees it, and Jimmy just really doesn't see it.
So we come back again. So we've come back, and Jimmy and Kim have this talk, and then Jimmy's removing the tape using the Chuck method of the 2 thumbs rolling very neatly. And Jimmy's done, I think, props to his work on the mural on the wall. I had my doubts about it during its painting, but at the end of the day, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with your assessment of that too. Because while that was kind of going on when he was, interviewing and doing all that kind of stuff, like I really didn't see where they were going with that, with the mural on the wall. I was like, wow, that looks really dumb. I'm not sure what they're trying to get across with that. But then when you see him actually taking the tape off and get the full effect that he was going for, I think it's actually a pretty cool design.
Yeah, I thought he was doing a great job. And this is where we see if Jimmy follows the Chuck way, he stays out of trouble and things are clean. But because of the frustration and anger building up, he goes back to the Jimmy method of removing tape, which is a big pull. And what had been all these series of very clean lines so far, the last little tail end's kind of marred now because ripped it off real quick, which is kind of some interesting symbolism. And then we cut back to Mike on the road. Some great cinematography here with Mike kind of coming over a hill, and just fantastic stuff. Always impressed with what they do. But he hears phone ringing and comes up, and there is a cell phone sitting on top of a gas cap in the middle of the road. So did I miss it? So I guess, are we to just sort of how does Mike get there and know to get out of his car and come across that? Did anything establish why that was going on, or did I miss that? It's a great scene.
No, it was a great scene. The only thing I can think of is just that they left the tracker with the gas cap, so the tracker just stopped.
And so he knew.
He knew something happened, so he was extra attentive as he was coming up on it, and that's how he spotted the phone. Because otherwise, even on a deserted highway like that, if you're just driving, you're not going to see that phone.
No, and so you're not only are you a better recapper than I am, you're more astute in your powers of observation. That makes perfect sense. And Mike stopping on one side of a hill because he goes, it's not moving, but I'm going to stay here to kind of keep cover. All makes perfect sense. And another great scene, looks cool. And how much you want to bet when he flips open that phone, there's a text message that says Polos on it?
Something along those lines, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then the last super awesome scene where, please describe it as you did in your recap, Mike.
So we see Hamlin basically playing out like an almost comedic, like Ferris Bueller end sequence kind of thing, where he's like sneaking through backyards and hopping fences and things like that.
Yeah, and props to Patrick Fabian, who's also, I mean, there's so many good actors on the show, but to master the I'm running, but I'm going to maintain posture and appear like I'm under control. So he's trying to maximize his kind of professional looking stand type of thing, and it's just the most awkward run I've ever seen from there. Not a gifted fence climber.
It is so perfect with the character though.
Yeah, just
those little nuanced things.
Yeah, it's exactly how you'd expect Howard to do that. It's exactly like you'd expect it to. It
Correct. Yeah.
Struggles with the fence, and finally gets over to it. Chuck is going on and on, rationalizing that the reason that this needs to be done is it's their duty, because Howard's ready to pull the plug on the investigators and all this that are going on, and Chuck is obviously fixated on this and saying how it's their duty. And then Jimmy bursts in very, very angry Jimmy. Blurts out, no wonder Rebecca left you. So we got that clarified, that Chuck's wife left him, and talks about him ruining the family. Jimmy breaks into the house. He breaks into the desk. He busts the tape. And as is the title of the episode, both Howard and Vegas deck guy witness Jimmy's actions.
Correct. Yeah, which, I mean, is a little bit different than Chuck probably planned it, but it still worked out the way Chuck wanted. Jimmy still played into his hand. You know, Chuck was expecting, like he kind of was trying to explain to Howard, like, you know, him either sending someone or coming under the cover of night and sneaking in and doing all this stuff. And it was actually much less graceful than that. It was him just coming directly over and forcing his way in and breaking the tape.
Yeah. So do you think, again, another great actor, Michael McKean, as Jimmy's erupting on him and going through there, my opinion is that I saw, at least for a fleeting second, Chuck start to realize how horrible he's being, at least start to have, whether it's kind of regret or shock and kind of realizing where he's taking this. Or do you think it was just surprise that Jimmy was mad?
Probably a little bit of both. I think what's great about this writing from Breaking Bad to this, and also such an excellent cast, is that there is so much nuance to these characters, even the supporting characters. So I think they are going to, even if it's in small ways, sort of explore the idea of Chuck understanding that he's being a dick. Because like you said, like he's fixated that he has to do this. Like he's not thinking about any sort of consequences or what's going to happen to Jimmy in the sense of whether or not he should do this. It's something he has to do because he has to be right and he has to be the superior person in the situation.
And he's a dick, as we established.
And he's a dick. So I do think like it would occur to him, but it would occur to him in the sense that he would almost be surprised by like, maybe I am being the asshole here.
Yeah, for the first time ever, that dawns on him, which tells you a little bit about Chuck.
Right, but I also don't think it would change his direction, though, either. Just because he has one sort of fleeting moment of questioning what he's doing, I don't think it would change his course, at least not yet. It's not something big enough yet to have him change course.
I'd agree. I think he might not enjoy the ride as much as he thought he was going to enjoy the ride here, where things are going to go now. But I don't think he's getting off the ride. I think he's going to go through. But he may have been a little bit surprised to learn to say, hey, I'm not going to find this as satisfying and rewarding as I thought it was going to be. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's one of those things like knowing or realizing in an argument that you're wrong, but feeling like you've come too far and you're just going to stick to your guns and bear down and push through it.
Yes, indeed. Alrighty, well, that is our recap of Season 3, Episode 2, Witness of Better Call Saul. Please give us a like on Facebook, or excuse me, on YouTube if you liked this video. If you didn't like it, as Mike suggested, you can find plenty of other videos to give that thumbs down to. And we really appreciate everybody for listening. We thank Tim from Bloomington for his input on Mike, and don't hesitate in the future. We're going to continue to try and do these on Wednesdays. We'll try and do a little bit better job for you in the future and give you a heads up on the time we're actually going to go live. Love to have you listen to us live so that we can catch questions from Twitter or YouTube or text. But we'll keep working on it. So I don't have anything to add for this week unless you do, Mike.
No, that's it. Do we want to do the Kim danger scale?
Oh yes, we got to do the Kimometer. The Kimometer. So, and so where does the Kimometer go for the writer? For those of you new to Saul and Battery, we each week on a scale of 0 to 100 kind of point to the likelihood of Kim's demise. And we're on the north side of 50% after last week's episode. Where do you have your Kimometer for this week?
It's raising a little bit for me. I'm not quite sure the number, maybe like 60, 65, but it's definitely raising for me because I would say that you're seeing the situation come more clearly into focus as far as what's going to lead to her demise. Like now we're lining up with Gus. We're seeing, what's probably the beginning of the final confrontation, or what's going to lead to the final confrontation between him and Chuck. So I feel like this is all, we're seeing everything line up to what's ultimately going to lead to her demise.
So I actually downgraded my Kimometer to an even 50 because it just feels to me the way that things were kind of set up today and how she's approaching things that at some point in time she may just basically say, this is completely messed up and I'm out of here, and just strike out somewhere else. So I'm hopeful that Kim just blows town at some point in time.
I don't think that's what's going to happen though.
I tend to gosh, I like the character. I hope things don't go badly for her, but we'll see. So okay, so I pulled back just a titch. Mike bumped it up just a notch. We'll see. I have a feeling this next episode may have a significant influence on the Kimometer for both of us. So we'll see. And with that, we're going to sign off, and we will catch everybody probably next Wednesday. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.